3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister encounters on haunted highways revealed. Sarah clutched the steering wheel tightly, glancing at the misty rearview mirror every few seconds. The highway twisted and turned into shadows and unknown territories. Out here, the farmhouses loomed like silent sentinels, their windows dark, holding secrets of fate. Her heart raced as she thought of the local legends, ghostly figures that roamed these desolate roads, and the echoing cries of lost souls who lingered in the autumn chill. Just last weekend, her neighbor Mrs. Allred whispered about a faceless driver who preyed on the unsuspecting. Sarah had laughed it off then, but now, the late-night air felt thick, and the unknown seemed all too real. The GPS flickered ominously, recalibrating, as the terrifying outline of headlights closed in behind her. The beam glared, seeming to pulse with an intent that sent chills down her spine. She pressed down harder on the gas. Each bump in the road jolted her, slamming the reality of her situation against her thoughts. Danger lurked here, in this unwelcoming void, where even the streetlights flickered as if alive with malice, leaving pools of darkness where nightmares could dwell. Potholes seemed to materialize without warning, threatening to swallow her car whole. Sweat trickled down her back as she fumbled her phone to send a quick message to her best friend. "Something feels off. I think someone's following me." Her fingers trembled, the screen flickering with the persistent lack of service. Panic set in, her heartbeat drumming louder than the rustling leaves outside. Suddenly, the headlights swerved, right behind her. A breath hitched in her throat as she remembered the chilling stories of mischievous spirits, luring unsuspecting drivers into traps, tales wrapped in layers of gossip and disbelief. As she recognized the familiar winding road that had once brought her comfort, a question gripped her. Had she consigned herself to a realm where darkness thrived, where trust was as fractured as the asphalt beneath? A sharp turn brought a fork in the road ahead. One path curled deeper into shadow, a proverbial rabbit hole. The other traced a way back toward the warmth of familiarity. With a quick glance backward, her heart dropped. The headlights seemed to dance, taunting her, growing ever closer, casting grotesque shadows that draped over her windshield like ominous wings. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue.
The road ahead bore down on her, dark clouds looming like a judgment day. Time slowed. A cold sweat dripped from her brow. Whoever followed her was not just a stranger. They seemed to know her every move, like a puppeteer guiding their marionette. Shadows danced in the periphery, and whispers of fear crawled up her spine, tightening her grip on the wheel. Just then, a shrill screech pierced through the silent night, sending her heart into her throat. She couldn't breathe. The looming headlights transformed in the darkness, no longer mere lights, but eyes filled with wicked intent. And in that split second, Sarah knew she had to make a choice. Ahead lay unfathomable terror, but turning back might reveal the worst truth of all. As her resolve faltered, she cast one more terrified glance into her rearview mirror. A face emerged from the shadows, familiar yet monstrous, an apparition she never sought to encounter, recognizable enough to break her heart, yet contorted into a chilling grin. Could she escape this web of betrayal? And would she find her son waiting for her at the end of the road, or something much worse? The road forked, and panic seized Sarah like an iron claw. Instinct screamed at her to take the left, toward the known comfort of home, but a deeper dread urged her down the darker path. Heart thudding, she plunged into the abyss, her tires crunching upon gravel that felt foreign underfoot. The headlights behind her glimmered through the mist, relentless and predatory, stretching into a serpentine tail. Every pulse of light seemed to bleed expectations, igniting her imagination with nightmare visions. In the rearview mirror, the figure took shape again, a shadowy silhouette, distorted but hauntingly familiar. It wore a smile like sharpened glass, threatening to shatter her sanity in an instant. She blinked, hoping it might dissolve into the darkness, but instead it grew clearer, more intertwined with her fear than the mist itself. Crying out, she gripped the wheel tighter. "No, please," she whispered to the empty void, hoping the night would somehow hear her plea. A thudding sound echoed in her ears as she peered ahead. Familiar landmarks dimmed into ominous shapes, twisting memories and forcing her blood to run cold. This was the road where laughter used to fill the air, where playful outings were etched into her mind like sacred tales.
Now it was a haunted memory dragging her down to a very different fate. The headlights behind surged forward, bathing her car in blinding light. Every nerve in her body screamed for escape as shadows whispered dreadfully close. I remembered those ghostly legends, the ones Mrs. Allred warned her about, the faceless man, the lost souls. They echoed in her thoughts with cruel irony. How could she have scoffed at those tales now? The terror of her presence swallowed her whole. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Sarah stomped on the accelerator.
The speedometer climbed, needle shuddering toward the red line, but still, that figure chased her down. She could hear it in the relentless hum of the engine, feel it vibrating through her bones. Just a few moments on this decayed path brought forth memories of laughter that now twisted with anguish. "Get away!" she yelled, her voice raw, cracking like dry leaves in a storm. But the road seemed alive, mocking her as it twisted deeper into obscurity. Where was she? Was this still the highway she knew, or had she crossed into another realm? The air grew thicker, suffocating, drenched in a cloying perfume of decay. The trees loomed closer now, gnarled fingers reaching out as if to snatch her sanity. She glanced in the mirror again, her heart plummeting. That face, a malevolent mockery of someone she had loved. "Is it really you?" she choked out, a hot wave of despair washing over her. And then, just as she thought she was trapped in a nightmare from which there would be no awakening, she caught sight of something illuminated ahead. A flickering light, a glow that seemed warm yet sinister, drawing her deeper into its mystery. As she reached the threshold of that light, the headlights vanished. Silence engulfed her, swallowing the echoes of revved engines and cries for help. But now she felt another presence, lurking in the edges of that flickering glow. Will she confront this new force, or has she driven herself deeper into a terror beyond imagination? What awaited her within that pulsating light? Was it salvation, or something even darker? The light flickered like a dying star, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the trees. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut for a brief moment, forcing herself to breathe. The air felt thick and electric, as if charged with malevolence. She opened her eyes, and the glow pulsed before her, beckoning. Hesitation crept in, as a cold sweat trickled down her back. The gentle hum of her car quieted to a whisper. It seemed even the engine was afraid. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped out, the gravel crunching beneath her feet sounding like thunder in the oppressive silence. She felt drawn to the light. Every cautious step weighted with dread. Shadows shifted as if they held stories of their own, and her heart raced at the thought of what had been left behind. What had she left behind? Could it be her sanity, her comfort, her very essence battered and bruised by this dark chase? As she approached, the light revealed an old wooden sign, half buried in weeds. Grovewood Rest Stop, an abandoned haunt from her youth. Memories flooded back, sharp and bittersweet. She had been here with friends, laughing and throwing chips at each other, the air thick with good cheer. But now, the air felt balmy with a sense of foreboding. The sign creaked slightly, as if something waited just beyond her line of sight. She hesitated, scanning the area.
Something stirred in the dark, a rustle, a whisper, so slight yet so charged with danger. "Is anyone there?" Sarah called, her voice trembling, swallowed by the oppressive stillness around her. A chill brushed her neck, and she almost turned to run, but instead she pressed on, driven by an instinct she couldn't name. The flickering light beckoned her. It was warm and inviting, yet carried an undercurrent of ice, as if it danced between lifetimes, hope and despair, life and death. Suddenly she heard a soft cry, a sound that tugged on her heart. "Help me!" It was almost a whisper, but it reverberated through the stillness, sending jolts of terror coursing through her body. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice breaking. The light seemed to pulse harder, as if in response. "Please, I can't find my way," the voice pleaded again, the desperation sharp enough to cut through her panic. Before she could fully process the plea, the soft light dimmed, revealing a figure emerging from the shadows, a child, ragged and dirty, eyes wide with fear and something darker. His mouth curled into a ghostly smile. "You're just like me, lost." Her breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" Panic peaked in her chest. "Stay," the child urged, beckoning her closer. "We've been waiting." A sudden realization hit her, a weight that crashed down like a stone. There was no child here, no warmth. This was a trap, a siren's call luring her into a never-ending void. Something stirred in the forest behind her, a low growl that quaked through her bones, relentless and hungry. Just then, the headlights of the car appeared again, slicing through the darkness with brutal clarity. The familiar figure emerged, a specter of her past, now reanimated with malice, lurking within their beam. It was too late. The light flickered once more, and in that moment, the fragile fabric of safety that had enveloped her unraveled. What awaited her next? Would she recognize the truth that lay beyond that flickering light, or would she become one with the shadows that lurked, waiting for another lost soul? The hunt had only just begun. Sarah stumbled back, her heart hammering against her ribcage. She couldn't let fear paralyze her now. The child's smile twisted in her mind like a knife. The headlights illuminated the figure she once loved, but no longer recognized, an apparition of her former best friend, Lisa, her eyes vacant, filled only with a hunger that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Sarah," Lisa's voice dripped with malice, echoing through the night. "You left me here." "No," Sarah cried, shaking her head, willing the memories to fade. "You were gone. You disappeared. I thought you were dead." A low, guttural laugh came from Lisa, a sound that sent icy shards through Sarah's veins. "I am dead, sweetie, but you can join us permanently."
The flickering light cast an unholy glow over the scene, highlighting the shadows that encroached closer, creeping like disease across the ground. Sarah's instinct screamed at her to run, to escape, yet her legs felt like lead. The deeper darkness beyond her was becoming alive, thrumming with a pulsating rhythm that matched the ache in her heart. "Help me," the child's voice squeaked, mingling with Lisa's taunts, twisting together in a chorus of despair and promise. "We need you, Sarah. Come home." Home? The word twisted in her mind as memories of laughter and friendship turned sour. She fought against the tug of the spectral child and her ghostly friend, recognizing the dangerous dance. They weren't playing. They were hunting. A distant howl resonated from the woods, low and mournful, cutting through the weighty silence. It was followed by whispers, a multitude of voices calling out to her, lamenting their lost dreams. "You're just like us," they cried, all begging, languishing in the lost hopes. "Stay." In a flash of defiance, Sarah turned sharply and sprinted back toward her car. The tires of her vehicle crunched violently as she flew across the gravel. Heart racing, she reached for the door handle, but the air felt thick, viscous. It pulled at her, slowing her down. Panic flared, hot in her throat. The growls intensified, morphing from low rumbles into crisp snarls that echoed all around her. They were close now, almost on top of her. She fumbled with the door, her fingers trembling. Where was the light switch? The comfort of the car faded as a shadow loomed larger beside her, out of the corner of her eye. Her heart plummeted. Fumbling in her desperate attempt to escape, she shrieked, "Get away from me!" Each word shot out like bullets, desperate enough to summon courage from the depths of her fear. The violets of the night seemed to condense into dark shapes swarming in, eager to tear her apart. With a burst of adrenaline, she yanked the door open and slid inside, slamming it shut just in time. She turned the key in the ignition, praying. The engine sputtered, once, twice, but it finally roared to life, a deafening sound in the total exposure of the night. Before she could move, she heard slow, deliberate tapping on the window. She gasped, gripping the steering wheel. The child with hollow eyes was standing there, mouth twisted in that terrible grin. "You can't leave us, Sarah." Revving the engine, she tore her gaze away from the child and slammed the gear into drive. Tires screeching, she lurched forward. The creature in shadows twisted and scattered, dissipating into the woods. But as she sped away, guilt gnawed at her. Panic mingled with sorrow. Were they right? Had she really left someone behind? Every glance in the rearview mirror revealed only darkness for a moment, before shadows of those lost filled the edges once more, as though they were unshakable bonds gnawing at her from the deep.
The road felt endless now, swallowed by a consuming black, and with it came the chill that whispered, "This isn't over. We will find you." Just then, a figure appeared at the edge of the road, new and ethereal, eyes blazing with recognition. But who was it? What could it want? The hunt was far from finished, and Sarah was about to learn just how tightly the past clung to the living. As Sarah's foot pressed harder on the gas pedal, she pushed thoughts of the ghostly figures from her mind. The tires screeched in rebellion against the gravel road. Pain shot through her chest, her mind racing with questions. Who was that figure at the edge of the road? The face felt too familiar, an echo of her past merging with the present horror. Shadows danced in her mind, feeding on her doubts. The headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating twisted branches that clawed the sky. Each flicker deepened her unease. The familiar contours of the road had morphed into menacing shapes. Gnarled trees cast long shadows across the asphalt, their long fingers beckoning her to turn back. She shook her head, forcing herself to focus on the way ahead. But the road twisted sharply, and she found herself driving right toward the woods, like a moth drawn to an unforgiving flame. Panic bubbled inside her. What if the entity that haunted her past had come to claim her? She screamed, "Get away from me!" but her voice was swallowed by the night. A howl pierced the air, too close, too human. It reverberated in her chest, drawing forth memories of laughter twisting into those agonizing cries. "Stop it!" She pressed her palms against her ears, hoping to block out the sounds that echoed in her mind. Turning her head occasionally to glance at the rearview mirror, shadows briefly coalesced into shapes before vanishing like smoke, laughing, crying, begging her to return. "You can't escape," they whisper sang, an eerie lullaby that crept under her skin. Suddenly, the headlights reflected a heavily worn sign, "Dead Man's Curve." The realization slammed into Sarah like a searing fist. The stories! They said those who took this road met twisted fates, their souls forever caught in the darkness. She was not just driving, she was racing toward her doom. "Get out of my head!" she yelled, fury rising against the encroaching gloom. But the trees leaned in closer, becoming a chorus of snarls and laughter. The sound crescendoed, both haunting and seductive. Were they memories, or merely visions conjured by her guilt? With an act of sheer determination, she wrenched the wheel, veering sharply off the road into a clearing. The car sputtered, protesting the sudden movement. Silence engulfed her, heavy and palpable. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if she had broken free. But it didn't last. The chilling laughter cascaded down, growing as swirls of mist enveloped the car. She could barely see outside.
"We are never far, Sarah, never far." The sign of Lisa's twisted smile materialized at the edge of her vision. It wasn't just a memory, it felt like a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. And then the door swung open, almost as if it was pulled by invisible hands. A bone-chilling cold rushed in, taking her breath away. "Lisa," Sarah croaked, voice cracking with terror. A faint glow emerged from the mist, illuminating the figure that had haunted her thoughts, her beautiful friend, or what once was. "Come home, Sarah," the voice coaxed. The mist-matched blending of familiarity wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. Her heart raced as she felt the swell of unnameable horror flood through her. A hand reached toward her, and Sarah recoiled, fear drawing lines across her skin. "Please, let go!" She desperately threw the car into reverse, propelling it backward, slamming the pedal to the floor. But the mist thickened, the trees wove tighter around her. Were they trapping her, or were they offering her safety from the horrors within? The figure flickered, as if unsure, revealing glimpses of sorrow and death wrapped in the tendrils of the fog. Just as she felt the power to break free, her foot slipped from the pedal, renditions of sorrow filling the air. "You can't run from fate, Sarah." And then everything went dark. What she couldn't see was the figure now approaching the driver's side, an unseen menace with one final chilling demand. Time to choose. The darkness crushed in around Sarah, gnawing at her sanity. She blinked, trying to focus her eyes, but the blackness wrapped tighter, smothering her spirit. She screamed, but only silence answered, thick and heavy. When her vision flickered back, she found herself no longer in the car, but standing on soft earth, surrounded by mist that coiled like living snakes. Panic surged again, but with it came the sharp realization that she was no longer alone. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, whispering her name in ghostly tones. Sarah! Heart pounding, she spun around. The air crackled with electricity and anguish. Figures emerged, faces she recognized but buried deep within her mind. Friends from a past that felt like a different life. They smiled, but their eyes glowed with an unsettling hunger. Why did you leave us? One whispered, her voice a haunting melody laced with sorrow. It was Lisa, her once vibrant friend, now a twisted reflection of herself, the glow of the mist giving her an inhuman shape. I didn't mean to, Sarah pleaded, hands trembling. She took a step back, but the ground seemed to shift beneath her feet, pulling her closer to the gaunt figures. You did this. Make it right, Lisa insisted, stepping forward, her gaze burning through Sarah's defenses. With each word, the air thickened, wrapping around Sarah like a tightening rope. Memory stabbed at her, a car ride from years ago, laughter low and ringing, then a turn too sharp, a scream that echoed in her mind.
I'm sorry, Sarah gasped, the weight of their lost lives crashing down on her. Please forgive me. But the mist swirled, drowning out her cries. The figures moved slowly, too slowly, their limbs elongated and grotesque. She could feel their bitterness seep into her veins. They closed in, their whispers rising to a furious crescendo. Time to choose, they echoed together, voices blending into a haunting chant. Join us, or suffer alone. The shadows pushed against her, a frantic surge in her chest responding to their call. The pain of loss solidified into fury. I won't, she shouted, almost desperately. Then the darkness shifted. She stole a glimpse of something beyond, a break in the fog revealing the twisting road. The weight of the shadows tightened around her neck, threatening to pull her under, but she could see the light of her car. It was a gamble, a flicker of hope among the torment. With everything she had in her, she turned towards the dissipating forms of her friends. I won't let memories bind me. You'll never take me. She sprinted towards the light, leaving behind the whispers that clawed at her sanity. A hand shot towards her, but she was faster, leaping into the cold space of her car, slamming the door shut. The engine spluttered to life, as if awakening from a long slumber. Heart racing, she gunned it, tires spinning wildly on gravel as the figures darted back into the mist, screaming, faces twisted in rage. But as she tore down the road, the memory shrieked through her mind again. What if the choice wasn't truly hers? What if she was merely a pawn in a game where the end demanded her return? And then the headlights caught something, an ominous figure standing in the middle of the road. Stunned, Sarah slammed on the brakes, the car skidding dangerously to a stop. And as the figure turned, breath left her lungs. It was Lisa, her ethereal face contorted with a pleading so desperate it sent shivers down Sarah's spine. Come home. What would Sarah do now? Decisions loomed like shadows, swallowing her balance between hope and despair. Time's running out, the voice floated through the car, chilling her blood. Her heart raced like a wild animal in a cage, the image of Lisa looming large in her mind. Sarah's grip tightened on the steering wheel, the car vibrating beneath her tense fingers. No, 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 she muttered, desperation spilling into her voice. This isn't real. But Lisa's eyes, those hollow reminders of friendship turned to madness, drew her in like a moth to flame. You can't run forever, Sarah. We are part of you. The darkness is inside you. As the mist thickened around the car, the world beyond the windshield blurred into a whirling nightmare. Panic clawed at her throat, and Sarah fought against the urge to scream again. She glanced down at the dashboard. The fuel gauge flickered ominously. What if she was stranded here? A shiver crept down her spine, and she clutched the seat as if it were a lifeline.
You're just a memory, she spat, trying to banish the wave of fear crashing over her. I won't be chained to what happened. Then why do you keep coming back? Lisa's voice twisted and melded with the shrieks of the shadows behind her, their distended mouths opening in a ghastly symphony of longing. Why do you let the guilt consume you? Suddenly, blaring horns pierced through the mist, a cacophony that pulled her attention back to the road. A distant headlight flickered through the fog, barely illuminating the edges of the abyss. Was it another car? A chance at escape? Don't go. Lisa's whisper turned icy, reaching for her with hands that seemed more like skeletal branches than any form of humanity. Your friends need you. I need you. Enough! Sarah slammed her foot down on the accelerator, tires screeching as she barreled forward, the headlights of the oncoming vehicle growing larger. A flash of relief surged through her when she saw the outline of another car, a pickup truck, its grille ominously looming as she barreled towards it. Blinking hard, she considered mitigation. Perhaps they could help. But as the two vehicles approached each other, time stretched painfully. The driver's face remained shadowy, unreadable. Sarah could feel desperation slithering back into her mind. Maybe they could save her, or maybe they were just another layer of the nightmare. Suddenly, a shriek shattered the tense air inside her car. "Stop!" Lisa's shadowy figure lunged, arms outstretched, as though trying to snag her back into the depths of despair. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, a primal scream ripping through her. The impact crashed into her. Metal and glass crunched as she plowed straight through the veils of her own anguish. The world around her exploded into color, reality whipping by like a fast-motion scene. She opened her eyes, only to find nothing but the starkness of night and the metallic tang of panic filling her nostrils. Ahead, the truck veered sharply out of view as if swallowed whole by the darkness. Sarah swerved, fighting the steering wheel, heart pounding against her ribcage. The echo of her own breathing mingled with the fading whispers that clawed at her sanity. "Where are you?" she gasped, the words barely sounding human. The silence now was an endless chasm, reminding her of the void from which she had escaped. And then she saw it, a large illuminated sign on the side of the road, flickering desperately like a dying star. "Welcome to Hollow Creek." Her mind throbbed. Hollow Creek. The very name sent shivers racing down her spine. The story she'd heard echoed back to her, tales of disappearances and faces that lingered too long in the dark. "Sarah," the soft murmur twisted through the air around her. "Don't you remember?" As dread dripped into her gut, she understood its meaning. Hollow Creek was the last stop before the edge, a town where echoes lost their whispers and nightmares thrived.
With her pulse thundering, she felt a pause in her heart. What are you trying to pull? She scanned the edges of the road, breath hitching in her throat. I won't be part of your game. But the very skies above seemed to murmur her fate, and the shadows began to beckon once again. What lay ahead was no longer a mere town, but perhaps a gateway to something darker. Will you finally come home? The question hung heavy, a chilling promise that left her trembling. A choice loomed again, and she was shackled to it, caught in a web spun by her own fears. What awaited her in Hollow Creek? Would she find the end of her nightmares, or the beginning of something far worse? As Sarah's car shuddered on the cracked pavement of Hollow Creek, the shadows seemed to dance like phantoms, beckoning her closer. The headlights flickered feebly, battling against the creeping darkness that swallowed everything in sight. Panic squeezed her chest, tightening like a vice. Just breathe, she told herself, her voice but a whisper lost. But the words felt hollow, nothing more than a mask for the rising tide of dread. Ahead, a gas station stood, its neon lights flickering erratically. The old, rusting sign read open 24 hours, but the surrounding silence was anything but welcoming. A half-empty coffee cup lay discarded on the pavement, a relic of the living lost to the night. She hesitated, dread pulsing through her veins. Was this a sanctuary or another trap? Steeling herself, Sarah guided her car to a stop at the station, engine sputtering as she cut the ignition. The sudden silence outside settled like a heavy blanket, thick and oppressive. She stepped out, the cold air hitting her like a wave, and moved toward the entrance, feet crunching over broken glass and pebbles. "Anyone here?" she called, voice wavering. Her words echoed back, teasing her sanity in the chilling emptiness. The dim light inside illuminated a few scattered items, dusty shelves stocked with outdated snacks and sodas, a flickering fluorescent bulb that buzzed like a swarm of angry bees. Her heart raced, the familiarity of fear tightening around her throat. She approached the counter, and a cold shiver ran down her spine. The cash register stood open, a grim reminder of abandonment. And then she heard it, a soft whimpering, the kind that drew at her heartstrings like a siren song. "Help, please." It came from the back room,
echoing off the grime-streaked walls. "Hello." She moved toward the sound, compelled despite the trepidation gnawing at her. The door to the back room hung ajar, a shadow beckoning her. "Is someone there?" Pushing the door open a crack, she peered in. A flickering bulb swung from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows. In the corner, a figure huddled, shaking and dirty, a wild look in their eyes. "They're coming for you. They'll take you too," the figure muttered, rocking back and forth. "Who?" Her mind raced with horror. "Who will take me?" The person raised their gaze, eyes wide with terror. "The ones who never left." Before Sarah could process the words, a noise behind her made her spin around. The door to the station slammed shut, plunging her into near darkness. The soft hum of the lights faded, leaving only the frantic breathing of the figure in the corner and her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Panic surged. "Let me out!" she screamed, rushing the door, but it wouldn't budge, as if held by an unseen force. Despair threatened to swallow her as she turned back to the trembling figure. "They will come for you," they repeated, voice rising in pitch, an echo of frantic madness. "You need to find the others before dusk." "Others? What others?" she cried, fear rising. But just as she opened her mouth to scream again, shadows flickered behind her, forming grotesque shapes, reaching out with eager, grasping hands. The figure's eyes widened in horror. "You must!" Suddenly the world shifted, the room spinning as if caught in a tornado of darkness. The whispers rose up, intertwining with shrieks and wails that filled her ears, drowning her in despair. Sarah fought for control, the very ground beneath her trembling as the weight of her choices bore down. In the turmoil, she caught a fleeting glimpse of a door at the far end, a faint light illuminating the way out. Or was it another trap? Would escaping lead her back to salvation, or deeper into the tangled web of her own nightmares? Sarah hesitated. The shadows moved closer, and the haunting question twisted in her mind. Was she too late to save herself, to confront the darkness that lurked within and outside? With a wrenching determination, she lunged toward the light, not knowing if it would save her or seal her fate. The door slammed open, flinging Sarah into a narrow corridor. The light flickered overhead, sending her heart racing. The ground beneath her was sticky, as if coated in some forgotten horror. She glanced back, but the figure in the corner had disappeared, leaving only echoes of the wailing that now swirled around her. "Where are you?" she whispered, breath quickening as she backed away from the oppressive shadows creeping along the walls. Every sound was amplified, the drip of water somewhere in the dark, the haunting rustle of something shifting just out of sight. The hallway stretched endlessly. Each step forward felt like a step into the abyss, the light at the end like a distant mirage. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from behind her, freezing her in place. Panic clawed at her throat as she turned slowly, dread flooding her veins. The distorted shapes began to surge forward, twisting and curling like smoke come alive. They seemed to pulse with energy, hungry for something. Each figure was unsettling, eyeless faces contorted in silent screams, mouths agape but offering no sound. "Help! Help me!" she screamed, her voice ripping through the fear that enveloped her.
The shadows recoiled momentarily, like a tide being pulled back, but only for a heartbeat. "Sarah." The voice was low, familiar yet foreign, echoing through the darkness, wrapping around her ankles. "You need to join us." Her skin prickled. "Who are you? What do you want?" But the response came as a whisper of wind, chilling her bones. "Find them. Save them before it's too late." Frantically, Sarah sprinted down the corridor, arms flailing. She turned random corners, her mind racing as adrenaline surged through her. The walls pulsed with despair, and the lights overhead flickered menacingly, threatening to go out once and for all. And then, abruptly, she saw it. A door, painted white and seemingly untouched by grime or time, standing defiantly at the end of the hall. Hope ignited within her. Maybe, just maybe, this was a way out. She bolted toward it, heart hammering against her ribs, anticipation colliding with terror. But as her hands reached for the knob, the shadows surged again, sweeping outwards. A collective moan escaped from the abyss, an unsettling harmony of tortured souls that echoed through the air. "You cannot escape." Desperation clawed her throat. "I have to save them," she cried, yanking the door open with a force she didn't know she had. There was no escape, just a sudden, blinding light swallowing her whole, enveloping her as she tumbled into what felt like freedom, and yet that freedom dripped with a certainty of doom.
Sarah landed hard on the other side, gasping for breath. The air was thick with humidity, a dense fog swirling around her as though she had emerged into another world. In front of her, a dirt road stretched endlessly, crumbling underfoot. Shapes loomed in the distance, figures stumbling in anguish. "The others," she whispered, horror creeping up her spine. They shuffled closer, their faces grief-stricken and void of life. But in their eyes, she saw it, the same flicker of fear and desperation she had felt just moments ago. Had these shadows claimed them too? She took a step back, cracking twigs underneath her feet. And then suddenly their heads snapped toward her, every single one, eyes wide with pain. "Help us!" they chorused in unsettling synchrony, pleading to be released from their fate. Sarah's world tilted, panic unfurling within her again as their hands reached out to her, grasping for salvation. "I can't!" she screamed, stepping away, only to find herself backed against an unseen wall. Their cries intensified, becoming an agonizing symphony that clawed at her sanity. "You must save us before dusk!" The weight of their desperation pressed down on her, heavy and suffocating. What if escaping led her deeper into the nightmare? Then a familiar voice echoed in her mind, haunting and relentless. "The ones who never left." Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, the ground began to tremble. Shadows twisted violently around her feet, creeping ever closer.
Sarah realized with growing dread, time was running out. What would she sacrifice to escape? Then she heard it, the crack of thunder, unholy and raw as the sky darkened ominously above her. And all at once, the figures surged forward. Would she join their agonized cries or fight for her own survival? The choice loomed, and the grasp of the shadows tightened. "Help us!" But as she stood on the precipice of terror, a blinding light broke through the darkness, illuminating the path ahead. Would she dare follow it, or was it merely another trap waiting to claim her? Sarah took a trembling breath, caught between despair and an atomic flicker of hope that ignited within her. The faces of lost souls loomed closer, their eyes filled with an anguished plea that tore at her heart. She couldn't stand there, paralyzed any longer. With every second that ticked by, twilight thickened, smothering the world in shadows. "Help us!" echoed through her mind with weight that threatened to plunge her into an abyss of guilt. "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw, cutting through the clamor of anguish. "I can save you. I have to try." Stepping toward the horde of lost souls, her pulse raced like wild thunder, and she felt their desperation coiling around her like an unrelenting vice. Sarah had already lost too much. She couldn't add their pain to her burden. But could she truly help them? The figures stumbled closer, their hollow eyes dimly lit with unyielding sorrow, but they were not lifeless. Each heartbeat whispered of shared laughter, of untold stories, of what once had been. They surged with renewed energy, drawing Sarah into their fold, and the weight of their collective despair threatened to crush her will. "I'm not leaving," she cried, consuming her voice with determination. As her words broke free into the dark ether, a sudden vibration surged through the earth beneath her, resonating with her pledge. The dark figures paused, waiting, expectantly, as shadows began to flicker like flames, illuminating their features in eerie flashes. "Free us, Sarah!" they chanted, a potent blend of hope and dread clawing at her. "Free us before it's too late!" "Tell me what to do!" she screamed, hands gripping her temples, battling her own rising fear. Suddenly, a cacophonous wail split the air, a mournful cry that resonated through her heart, reminding her of the bond she shared with those lost. The thought of Lisa surged forth in vivid memory, their friendship a sharp contrast to the shadowy figures surrounding her. In sheer desperation, she took a bold step forward. "I know you're still there, Lisa." The forms swelled in acknowledgement, shadowy tendrils dancing at the corners of her vision. "You can save us. You can free us." With new purpose, Sarah braced herself against the jarring reality that engulfed her. "I choose to break the cycle. I choose to free you,
None of you should linger here in pain.
And in that moment of clarity, a brilliant light exploded forth from her being, variable and bright, a fragile warmth in the evening chill, burning through the fog like a beacon. "Feel it! Release your pain!" she bellowed, flinging her hands wide, embracing the radiant glow that pulsed within her. The figures seemed to awaken, flickering between shadows and light as they moved forward. With desperate agreement, the lost souls encircled her, their hands reaching out as waves of energy sparked in unison. The colors swirled, spiraling into a crescent radiance, infusing the air with electric power. The whispers heightened to a roar, and the shadows crumbled, reeling backward with every pulse of Sarah's determination. Suddenly, a tendril of darkness lunged toward her, a final desperate reach. "Do not leave us behind!" it shrieked, grasping at her ankles. But Sarah's light expelled the suffocating void. She envisioned her hopes, her memories, the laughter she cherished, the struggles of her past, all intertwined within this resurrection. "You can't have me. I choose life and light." The world exploded with energy, light pouring forth, cascading upon the forsaken highway as she ascended into a brighter reality. The horrifying shadows shrieked, twisting and dissipating, pulling apart until they transformed into wisps of gratitude that fused with her warmth. Thank you," their voices echoed as they ascended into the shimmering ether, fading into freedom. And at the center of it all was Lisa, a reflection of her former friend, beaming brightly through the veil between shadow and light. "Find peace, Sarah," she called out softly, the voice laced with relief, love wrapping tightly around the bonds of friendship. As their shimmering forms vanished into the light, Sarah felt the bonds of despair lift from her shoulders. This is what it meant to let go. The darkness lay behind her now, dissipating like fog in the morning sun, and the road continued forward, the final destination bathed in brilliant hues of dawn. Empowered, she turned back toward the endless stretch of highway, the world alive with possibilities. She would live to share her story, to remind others not to let the darkness claim them. And now, as a hush settled across the land, she pressed onward into the rising sun, knowing she had freed the lost, including herself. Sarah's journey was finally at an end. She had discovered the light within her own darkened heart, a testament that the past, while ever present, no longer had dominion over her future. And just as the warmth enveloped her, a new journey ignited ahead, waiting just beyond the light. If you've enjoyed this wild ride, don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on more exclusive stories just like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these tales alive.
Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's ending. You know we want to hear from you. And for the love of horror, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping conclusion. You need to show your support. Only true fans understand how crucial it is. Let's keep this community growing strong.